oh God, chemistry class. I ducked this class because we didn't have any chemistry. We don't talk about too much chemistry. And then the fun part about minerals is this, orderly internal arrangement of their atoms. So if you think of atoms as tiny little balls, what that means is that the balls are really, really well organized. And the organization repeats in 3 dimensions. And so obviously these aren't atoms. This is an M.C. Escher drawing. But you get the idea that this is a regular, orderly, repeated pattern. These fish-bird things, what they are, hybrid fish-bird things, they are repeated over and over and over and over and over again at regular intervals in 3 dimensions. And so if we want to represent that another way, we can draw what's called a lattice, where each of these nubs is a repeat in 3 dimensions, right? So minerals are made of crystals, and crystals are more or less the same thing. They're orderly, repeated arrangements of atoms. And so here is a close-up of crystal. So we see we have these crystals, they have this nice pointed structure. That structure is reflecting this ordered internal arrangement of the atoms. All right, so minerals are crystals. So it's important to know that part of being a mineral, part of that definition of being a mineral, is that you have to be a crystal. To be a crystal is to have an ordered internal arrangement. So all minerals are crystals by definition. Do you think all crystals are minerals? Does it work the other way? It does not work the other way because some crystals could be organic, like sugar. Sugar comes from beets. It's an organic crystalline substance. So not all crystals are minerals. Some crystals are minerals, but all minerals by definition have to be crystals. And so this just shows you several different crystal forms. So this again, this idea that the internal arrangement of the atom is reflected in those pretty flat crystal faces. So some crystals look like little cubes, some look like little double pyramids, some are long and skinny, some have really interesting shiny flat faces. But what you see in these in common is that they all have regular shiny flat faces. Now of course nature's not going to make perfect beautiful crystals every single time. You're not going to get gorgeous crystals like that. When we find them like that, we call them gemstones, and we make them into pretty things like jewelry. But not all crystals are going to be. But given the ideal circumstances of growth, crystals, minerals will grow into these nice crystal forms. Most of them. There's a few exceptions. Some others. All right, so how do we study crystals? Crystals are usually studied with X-ray beam technology. So we take a machine that has an X-ray source, we shine it through the crystal, and the crystal bends the X-rays and makes this pattern called a diffraction pattern. And the pattern can tell us about the internal arrangement of the atoms. So that's how we know what we know. That's how a lot of crystals were originally studied. Another thing about crystals is that they have what's called symmetry. So there's a mirror plane symmetry, means that 2 halves of an object are identical. So you can imagine you could take this snowflake or this cube, and you could slice it in half. You could fold it in half, and those 2 halves are identical to each other. Humans also have that same symmetry, right? If I take a line and imagine it went down halfway down my middle, assuming I'm proportional to myself, I have the same right and the left sides. So we have mirror symmetry. So that's another characteristic of minerals. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to march through what are called mineral properties. So one of the things you're going to do in lab this week is you're going to be having a tray of minerals. And you're going to hunt through the tray. This is hunt through the minerals week and identify who's who, the mineral who's who of the mineral game. And in order to do that, we have to talk a little bit about mineral properties. So you get to try some of these, most of these, all of these out in lab. And we'll just kind of go through different properties. So one of the properties you want to look at when you get your mineral crystals is you want to look at what's called their crystal form. And that is the growth shape of the crystal. And so these, for example, these are a mineral called pyrite. This is one called halite. I don't know what halite is. It's a fancy name for... Put it on our cereal. Oh, we don't put it on cereal. Put it on our eggs sometimes. Like your French fries. Yeah, halite is salt. It is the exact same salt that is mined and eaten. So yeah, you can put halite. You can impress all your friends next time you go out at McDonald's and put halite. Tell them to put halite on salt here in Michigan. In fact, most of the salt that's mined in Michigan is road salt quality. We do not have salt deposits that are food grade quality. But these guys share in common that the ordered arrangement of atoms is reflected in these nice cubes that the minerals make. So again, this idea of the internal arrangement making cubes. Quartz, on the other hand, tends not to make those pretty cubes. Quartz makes what's called a prismatic form. Quartz tends to make it a six-sided long crystal with a point on top. Which is very characteristic of how the atoms are arranged inside the quartz. Here's some other crystal forms. We use the term plated to mean kind of flat and long, like the blade of a sword, blade of a knife. So you can use that word to describe crystal forms. Here's a spray of crystals, tiny little needle-like crystals. There's lots and lots and lots of different vocabulary words for describing crystal forms. And you'll get some of these in labs, just a quick introduction. These are some crystals. This is not a fake picture. Actually, most people think this is a fake picture when you first see it. It looks totally fake, doesn't it? Some person standing there, like they've been photoshopped into a tiny little geode. Isn't that what it looks like? This is actually called Cave of the Crystals, and these are enormous gypsum crystals. These are the largest crystals ever found on Earth, and they're from Chihuahua, Mexico. And there's a more recent version of the same, yes, Chihuahua, like little dogs. So there's a more recent version of the same picture in your textbook, I noticed, which is kind of cool. If you go online, you can look at your textbook. Except the person in your textbook is wearing a hazmat suit. And I asked Rob about that. I was like, well, what's this person, what's this lady here? That's a lady, I don't know. What's this person doing in this cave? And like, why is he saying a hazmat suit? And he said, well, they're so worried, the government is so worried about people and tourists going to the cave and touching the minerals. They make you wear the full head-to-toe bodysuit with a respirator so that your oils on your hands from touching these giant crystals and your breath doesn't disturb them. So people can go here and you can go see, I mean, you probably have to be extremely wealthy to arrange a tour of the giant crystal cave. But yeah, they make you dress in hazmat suits so you don't destroy the crystals. It's pretty crazy to think about. So they're more worried about the crystals being broken than they are worried about the tourists. All right, color is another very important mineral property. But I will warn you now, do not always trust color. Color is a sneaky little devil. So some minerals have what's called inherent color. That means whenever you find this mineral, if I find it in Michigan, if I find it in Mexico, if I find it in Indonesia, if I find it in the bottom of the ocean, if I find it on the side of a volcano, it's always going to be the same color. So sulfur is always going to be this kind of canary yellow. Malachite is another mineral. It's always going to be this particular shade of kind of a dewy, turquoisey green. They're very diagnostic. But for some minerals, we have what's called exotic color, not inherent color. And what that means is that the color can vary due to impurities in the crystal. So quartz is an example of a mineral that has a wide variety of colors. Some of these even have gemstone names. Quartz is a semi-precious gemstone. You can get quartz that's clear to milky white. You can get quartz that's purple. It's called amethyst. It's gemstone. Yellow quartz is called citrine. It also comes in pink, clear, and green. And the gray quartz is called smooth quartz. So if you have quartz, you don't want to be relying on the color as a diagnostic tool to figure out what it is, because the color can vary quite a lot. Fluorite is another one that has variable colors. You can see up there, yellowish, yellowish white, pale purple, deep purple, and black. So fluorite is another one that the color is very tricky. You don't want to trust color. Why does color vary in minerals? Well, here we see the internal arrangement of the atoms. So this is an example of a diamond. So each of these is a different carbon atom. Diamonds are often clear, but they can be colored. There are blue diamonds, there are yellow diamonds, and what that is causing that color are tiny bits of impurities, tiny little bits of other elements, chrome or iron or magnesium or those sorts of different elements. Those get trapped inside of the crystals, inside of the structure. So instead of all of these balls being identical little balls of carbon, some of those bowls will be a different element, and that's what gives minerals their color. All right, hooker question. Quartz and fluorite exhibit inherent color. Who are the truths? Falses? All right, falses have it. They have exotic color. Do not trust them. All right, another property you're going to want to do in lab is called streak. You take your mineral and you rub it on this little ceramic plate, and you look and see what color rubs off. Now, some minerals, their streak will be the same color as the mineral itself. So this mineral is called magnetite, and it's kind of blackish, and it makes a blackish streak. It's not very exciting, interesting, right? But other ones are a little bit more interesting. This bright silvery mineral called hematite, it makes a reddish-brownish streak. Interesting. And here's our friend sulfur again, and the bright yellow sulfur mineral will make a yellow streak. Those are just some examples. Some minerals are too hard to leave streaks, so you can't do the streak test on all minerals. Another property that has to do with how light interacts with the mineral is called luster. We have basically two types of luster. So again, luster is simply how light interacts with the mineral surface. We have metallic luster and non-metallic luster. And they are exactly what they sound like. So metallic luster looks like, hey, I know, it's not that hard. It looks like metal. Thank you for playing along. It looks like metal. It looks like gold. It looks like silver, copper, bronze, steel. It looks bright and shiny like metal. Light does not pass through it. It's not translucent. You can't see through it. It's not simply that it's shiny, because there are a lot of minerals that are shiny but are not metallic. They don't specifically look like a metal. So metallic means looks like brand new shiny copper penny, shiny piece of gold, really looks like a metal. Non-metallic, we have lots and lots of words to describe non-metallic. You'll encounter some of these in the lab. Dull or earthy, looks like a brick. Silky, fibrous, glassy, there's lots and lots, pearly. I mean, there's lots of luster words for non-metallic. We'll just stick with non-metallic for right now. So metallic, non-metallic. All right, here's some examples of different types of non-metallic luster. Like I said, just because something is shiny doesn't necessarily mean that it's a metal. This does not look like a metal. I'm going to give you it's a little bit silvery, but I can see through that crystal. So that makes it non-metallic, but with a glassy or a vitreous luster. This mineral called sphalerite has what's called a resinous luster. It looks like a blob of tree sap, what that word means basically. This one here has what we would call a pearly luster. So it looks like a pearl. It looks, the words are fairly descriptive of what they mean. It's not meant to be really, geologists aren't that imaginative. They basically use the word that describes what it is. All right, this is everyone's favorite. There's a property that's called cleavage. You can giggle all you want. It's a real property of minerals. And what it is the mineral breaks along planes of weakness. So remember we said each of these little minerals, each of these little guys, is filled with countless billions upon billions of atoms that are arranged and packed next to each other in orderly ways. Some of those ways that they're touching each other are strong, and some of those ways are weak. And when we break the mineral, it's going to break along the areas that are weak, and that's what cleavage is. So cleavage is how it breaks. And you can tell a cleavage surface from other surface because it's a very smooth, shiny surface. So you're getting this smooth, clean, broken surface when you have minerals that cleave. There are several different types of cleavage, and we'll see examples of these in lab. Here is an example of a mineral that has, so when we describe cleavage, we talk about the number of cleavage surfaces and the directions of cleavage. So the numbers can vary from 1, 2, 3, or 4. I think it's also possible to get 6 directions of cleavage, but it's extremely rare, and I know we don't have any examples of that in lab. We can also have cleavage at 90 degrees at a right angle, and cleavages that are something other than a right angle. So when we describe cleavage, you have to remember to describe two things: how many breakage surfaces there are, and what the angle is between the breakage surfaces. But this one up here, this likes a mineral. You guys may have seen this before, called muscovite or biotite. Muscovite's the silvery one and biotite's the black one. It breaks into thin sheets, thin identical sheets. How many cleavages? Look at the little cartoon up there. How many cleavages is a sheet? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, one cleavage. So that'd be an example of something with one cleavage. What about this guy down here? Here's our friend halite again, table salt. Table salt forms perfect little cubes when you break it. So that would be 1, 2, 3 cleavages. So that would be an example of 3 cleavages at 90 degrees. Here it is over here again. 3 at 90. The way I tell students to tell the 90s and the not 90s is these look like perfect little boxes. A little box you get from Amazon. It's a nice, neat little cube. This looks like somebody sat on the box and squashed it over in one direction. So it's going to look like not a nice, even 90-degree box. It's going to look like a box that's been kind of pushed in one direction. Fluorite is a really interesting one. It's the only common mineral that has 4 directions of cleavage. And if fluoride is really nicely cleaved, it will form these nice little octagons, these 8-sided figures. All right, here's just a different example of cleavage so you can see it. The little surfaces are showing you sort of the arrangement of the atomic text. So this is kind of just a repeat of what we just saw. Oh, this one has 6. Like I said, it's pretty rare to have cleavages in 6 directions. I don't think we're going to teach you any of those in there. I don't know what he meant by that. Have to ask him next time. All right. Oh, look at your question. Surfaces produced by crystal form and cleavages are the same thing. Trues? Falses? Well, let's see a whole lot of hands on that. Do you remember what crystal form was? We talked about that really early. So crystal form is how the mineral grows. Points for quartz, cubes. Sometimes they are the same thing. Halite prefers to grow in cubes, and it cleaves in cubes. Sometimes they're not the same thing. So they're not always the same thing. They can be different things. All right, fracture is a property that's closely related to cleavage. Instead of getting nice, clean, broken surfaces, you get rough, random surfaces when you have fracture. So fracture indicates that instead of having strong bonds and weak bonds, that your bonds are of relatively equal strength in all directions. So there's no preferred direction that the mineral wants to split. So when you have samples in the lab, you can tell the fracture surfaces from the cleavage surfaces. The cleavage surfaces will be kind of very clean, very uniform, very shiny, kind of hold them up in the light, you'll see them reflect the light. The fracture surfaces will be much more rough and dull. There are several different types of fracture. Quartz and volcanic glass are notorious for what's called this conchoidal fracture. And so it has this pattern. If you've ever seen like actual real broken glass, it forms that kind of circular pattern. So it looks like a series of circles kind of radiating outwards. Really interesting fracture pattern. Quartz has very strong bonds in all directions, so it has no cleavage. It does not have any preferred breakage pattern. So if you see smooth surfaces on quartz crystals, those are the growth surfaces, not the fracture surfaces. They're not the cleavage surfaces, but quartz does have that fracture. All right, let's spend some time talking about hardness. Apparently, Dr. Gillespie thinks hardness is very important, so he has lots and lots of slides about hardness. So hardness is defined as the resistance of the mineral to being scratched. Now, we're not breaking them at this point. We're not cleaving them. We are scratching them against each other. So this is called Mohs hardness scale, and it is a list of minerals organized from softer to harder. So down here at 1 is the soft minerals. Oh no, just put my finger over it. So down here at 1 are the soft minerals, talc and gypsum, and then they go up to 10. And the reason why these aren't on a nice scale next to each other is that they're not all, the amount of hardness is not equal as you go up in each mineral. So diamonds are 80 times harder than talc.